I chose to do substance-related disorders because I've been working with veterans who have um, substance abuse and PTSD since January, so it's been a cool experience to learn about. So first, what even is a substance-related disorder? The DSM-4 classifies it as those who have a substance-related disorder as people who rely on the use of substances for non-medical purposes and who experience diminished psychological and physical functioning. And then polysubstance dependence just means that they are dependent on 3 or more drugs, but they don't use one more than the others necessarily. And dependence, in order for it to be classified as dependence, is you need tolerance, withdrawal, and compulsive drug taking behavior. Intolerance means that you become accustomed to original doses, and then you have to keep increasing the dose to get the same effect as before. And withdrawal is what your body goes through when the concentration of the substance is like declining and like leaving the body. So the kind of steps to that are, it begins with drug use, and then people start becoming tolerant to abusing drugs, and then they become dependent on them, and that is addiction. So some statistics. Substance-related disorders contribute to more deaths, disabilities, and illnesses than any other preventable health condition. More than 25% of adults living with serious mental health problems also have a substance use problem. Alcoholism is the third leading cause of preventable death in the United States. And 52.7% of Americans aged 12 and up reported being current drinkers of alcohol in 2014. So we're looking over half of our population over 12 consuming alcohol. So those who are at a bit of a higher risk to develop a substance use disorder are children of alcoholics, those who've been raised in families with chemically dependent persons. If they grew up with their parents being addicted to a substance, they are more likely to be addicted as well. In general, raised with patterns of dysfunction and codependency. Those with mental illness such as anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, or personality disorders. And those who are sensation-seeking or like to be in control. And there are 11 classes of substances involved with dependence and abuse. So the first one is alcohol, and alcohol is a depressant, and that means, so that's its effect on the central nervous system, and so it depresses, so it's gonna, not explaining something real, like a stimulant is going to stimulate the nervous system, and it's going to like increase breathing, heart rate, make you jittery, things like that. Depressants usually make you more calm and relaxed and lower your breathing rate, and reduce anxiety. So with alcohol, the CDC, well, according to the CDC, there are about 88,000 deaths per year due to excessive alcohol use. And alcohol is the number one most abused substance, like the most common abused substance. Amphetamines are stimulants, so those are like methamphetamines, cocaine. Those are drugs, both illegal and prescription. So prescription drugs that classify as amphetamines would be those used for like ADD and ADHD. And And those are really, I don't know if any of you know someone with ADD or ADHD. Well, I'm sure we do. But in order to get a prescription for, I'm trying to think of the name. I'm sorry. But in order to get a prescription for an amphetamine, you need to get diagnosed and like approved for it by like 2 separate doctors, and you have to answer all these questions and stuff like that, because it's extremely abused in the school system. Caffeine is a stimulant. I think we're aware of that. And it's involved with dependence and abuse. Like, I don't necessarily think of caffeine as a substance when I think of like substance abuse, but we probably know people who are addicted to caffeine, whether it's coffee or Diet Coke or Mountain Dew or Monsters or whatever. Cannabis is interesting because it can be a stimulant, a depressant, or a hallucinogen. And another interesting thing that I found is that heavy marijuana use in youth is linked to increased risk for developing mental illness and poor cognitive functioning. So cocaine is a stimulant, and what was I going to say about cocaine? But yeah, some people classify it with other stimulants as like amphetamines, but it's kind of its own deal. Hallucinogens change perception. They can cause hallucinations, and they kind of just like distort reality. And those include LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, peyote, inhalants. So inhalants are mainly depressants. Nicotine's also interesting. It can be a stimulant or a depressant. And the CDC reported, or I think like about each year, there are about 480,000 deaths due to cigarette smoking per year. And an interesting thing, a 2014 statistic, so this is relating to culture and something to have in mind, just due to the different cultures and who uses tobacco. So the highest tobacco users were American Indians or Alaskan Natives, and 37.8% of them use tobacco. The second highest was Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders at 30.6%. Whites, 27.6%. Blacks, 26.6%. Hispanics, 18.8%. And Asians, 10.2%. And then opioids, or narcotics, are painkillers. And they reduce the perception of pain, and they also produce like drowsiness, confusion. But what's interesting is that they can also produce euphoria. It depends on how it's used and how much is used. Yeah, so those are things like opium, heroin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, and codeine. And let's see, phencyclidine or PCP is interesting because it can be a stimulant, depressant, and hallucinogen, just depending And then sedatives are sleeping pills and benzodiazepines. And benzodiazepines are medications used to treat like extreme anxiety. And so it's supposed to just like calm, sorry, so to just like calm you down. But they can be extremely dangerous when abused. And some complications that come from substance abuse are depression, cancer, infection with HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C, especially if you're sharing needles, job loss, problems with memory and concentration, problems with the law, relationship breakups, and unsafe sexual practices, which may result in pregnancies, STDs, HIV, or viral hepatitis. And leisure and substance abuse. Drugs and alcohol are considered by many as ways to have fun. An interesting thing is that a lot of the veterans I work with who are dependent on substances, they'll say things like, I've never gone skiing without alcohol, or like, I've never golfed without alcohol, or like, I've never, like, I don't know how to have fun without like using a substance. And most of substance abuse occurs during leisure time in younger people and adults because it's seen as a way to just have a good time. And that's why that's why recreation therapy can be helpful, because we can teach people that they can have fun without using substances. And that's kind of what my job has been since January, is just teaching them kind of how to have fun again, and they're like relearning recreation as a sober person. And some sources. Yeah. Thanks for watching.